When we talk about walking away, people often associate it with defeat, as if leaving means you failed. But in reality, walking away can be one of the most powerful, self-honoring choices a woman can make.
It's not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not giving up. It's the mastery of self.
And most people don't understand the strength it takes to choose yourself when staying would be easier, more comfortable, or more familiar. See, staying in a situation where your needs are unmet, where your voice isn't heard, or where your presence is taken for granted. That's the easy path. For granted. It requires no action, no courage. It just asks you to stay silent, endure, and shrink a little more every day. Walking away, on the other hand, takes real bravery. It means you've assessed the emotional cost, seen the pattern clearly, and said, this version of my life is no longer acceptable. That moment of clarity, that's power. That's the moment you go from being passive to being intentional. The truth is, many people stay because they are afraid of the unknown, afraid of being alone, afraid that no one better will come. But walking away says, even if I don't know what's next, I trust myself enough to know I deserve more than this. That trust in yourself is rare, and it's magnetic. It's the difference between living in survival mode and living with self-respect. You're not walking away from someone. You're walking towards yourself, towards your boundaries, towards your worth, towards a standard you refuse to compromise on anymore. And that shift in mindset from fear to faith in your value changes the energy you radiate. When you walk away, you stop chasing validation. You stop asking, why don't they see me? And start asking, why did I wait this long to see myself? Let's be clear. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared deeply, but you cared about you too. It's easy to get caught in the idea that love means staying no matter what, that endurance equals loyalty. But real loyalty begins with being loyal to your own well-being. If you keep sacrificing your peace to keep someone else comfortable, you're not loving, you're losing yourself. Walking away isn't about creating drama or making a statement. It's quiet, it's calm, it's resolute. It's the moment where you choose your dignity over dysfunction. And once you've made that choice, something inside you changes. You don't beg for bare minimum. You don't fight for someone to step up. You just step out. And in doing so, you step into a version of you that no longer settles. That's where your power lives, not in the fight, but in the freedom that comes after. There's a subtle but powerful message we send every time we choose to stay in a space where we're not respected. And that message is this: this is okay. Whether we say it out loud or not, our presence becomes permission. That's why staying when you're not being treated with care, kindness, or consideration is more damaging than people realize. You're not just enduring someone else's behavior, you're training them to believe it's acceptable. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you command, not with force, but with standards. When those standards are repeatedly ignored or violated, and you continue to show up, the dynamic shifts. What you tolerate becomes the new normal, and over time, you begin to lose yourself. Not in one big moment, but in small, silent ones. The moment you stayed quiet when something hurt, the time you let a boundary slide, the times you convinced yourself it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal. Because every time you allow disrespect to stand unchallenged, you chip away at your own sense of value. The danger here isn't just in how others treat you, it's in how you start to treat yourself. You begin to believe the lie that this is the best you can get, or that expecting more is asking too much. And that belief is what keeps you stuck. But the moment you decide you know this isn't enough and walk away from it, everything changes. That act of leaving, of refusing to accept less, sends a message far louder than any argument ever could. People often think respect is earned, and it is mutually. But it's also something that's lost when boundaries are crossed without consequence. You don't teach people how to treat you by what you say. You teach them through what you allow. And when someone sees that you'll stay, even when they give you the bare minimum, they have no reason to change. Why would they? The dynamic works in their favor. But the second you walk away, you shift that power. You show them and yourself that your self-worth is not up for debate, that you won't negotiate your value to keep someone close. Respect starts and ends with you. And when you leave a situation that has repeatedly shown you disregard, you reclaim control. You say, I deserve more than this story, and you close the chapter, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. It's not about revenge. It's not about proving a point. It's about remembering who you are and refusing to stay in places that forget it. Walking away doesn't mean you're done loving. It means you're done abandoning yourself in the process. That's not loss. That's liberation. And it's where real respect begins. Not from them, but from you. There is a deep, often hidden cost to living for the approval of others. It seems harmless on the surface, saying yes when you want to say no, holding back your truth to keep the peace, tolerating behavior that makes you uncomfortable just so you won't be seen as a difficult. But over time, this pattern doesn't just make your life smaller, it makes you smaller. When you constantly seek approval, you become dependent on other people's acceptance to feel secure, and in doing so, you slowly give away your power. Approval becomes a drug. Subtle, addictive, and temporarily satisfying. The problem is, it never lasts. No matter how many times someone validates you, you're still left needing the next dose. You begin to shapeshift, adapt, and mold yourself to fit what you think others want. And in the process, you disconnect from your own voice, your own values, and your own needs. That's not connection. That's performance. But here's the truth most people avoid. Approval doesn't equal love. You can be liked by everyone in the room and still feel completely unseen. You can be chosen by someone and still feel deeply unworthy, because being approved of is not the same as being respected. And it's definitely not the same as being loved for who you really are. That's where self-respect comes in. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't need to be constantly reaffirmed. Self-respect is quiet but unshakable. It's the internal standard that says, even if you don't choose me, I still choose myself. It's what allows you to walk away from situations where you're tolerated instead of celebrated. It's what helps you say no without guilt, to speak your truth without fear, to disappoint others without betraying yourself. When you stop chasing approval and start building self-respect, everything shifts. You begin to attract different energy. People sense the difference. You're no longer trying to be enough for someone else. You know you're enough. And when someone doesn't see that, it's not a crisis. It's just information. You don't try to convince them. You don't hustle harder to earn what should be freely given. You simply move on. Because the most magnetic, powerful version of you is the one who no longer needs outside validation to feel worthy. She knows who she is. She knows what she brings to the table. And if someone doesn't recognize that, that's not her loss. It's there. In the end, self-respect doesn't protect you from pain, but it protects you from staying too long in places that are already hurting you. It draws a line. It creates clarity. And it reminds you that your value is not up for negotiation. Approval may be sweet in the moment, but self-respect is what sustains you for a lifetime. Life has a way of reflecting back to you what you're willing to accept. And when you hold on to something or someone that isn't aligned with your values, your peace, or your purpose, you block what's meant for you. Holding on to the wrong thing doesn't just delay your growth, it suffocates it. Walking away isn't just about removing yourself from what no longer serves you. It's about creating space for clarity, space for healing, and most importantly, space for alignment. We often stay in relationships, jobs, or environments that feel almost right because they're familiar, because they offer a sense of safety. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Almost right is still wrong. When you stay in something that isn't fully aligned, you send the message to the universe and to yourself that you're okay with halfway. And the longer you stay, the more crowded your life becomes with things that dilute your energy and confuse your direction. Alignment requires room. It requires stillness. It requires courage. When you walk away from misaligned situations, it may feel like you're losing something. But in reality, you're clearing the clutter. You're saying, I trust that there's more for me than this. And that trust creates momentum. Suddenly, your standards rise. Your decisions become sharper. You begin to see that the very thing you were holding on to was the weight keeping you stuck. This is why walking away is such a powerful energetic shift. It's not passive, it's an active choice to step into something better, starting with your relationship with yourself. You begin to realize that peace is not found in chaos. Love is not found in confusion. And your worth isn't found in how long you can hold on. It's found in how bravely you can let go. When your life is full of things that don't fit, the things that do can't find a way in. That's the paradox. You want better, but you're full. You want peace, but you're clinging to chaos. You want love, but you're entangled in fear. Walking away opens the door. It clears the noise. It resets the frequency. It tells life, I'm ready now. And you have to understand, Alignment doesn't always show up immediately after you walk away. Sometimes there's a gap, a season of uncertainty. But don't mistake that gap for failure. That space is where you meet yourself again. That's where the new path is formed. That's where you start attracting not what you want out of desperation, but what you deserve out of wholeness. So when you walk away, don't look back in regret. Look back in regret. Look forward in faith, because the space you're creating isn't empty. It's sacred, and it's waiting to be filled with everything that was meant for you all along. There's a common misconception that being liked, being agreeable, or always saying yes will make people value you more. But if you're always there, always accommodating, always available, people will appreciate your effort and return it with loyalty, love, or commitment. But it doesn't work that way. People don't value what they can predict, what they can manipulate, or what never says a no. In truth, people don't respect constant pleasing. They respect boundaries. When you don't set boundaries, you may think you're keeping the peace, but what you're really doing is teaching others that your needs come last, that your needs come last, that your time, your energy, your emotional capacity, they're all negotiable. But when you draw a line, when you say, this is what I will and will not allow, you're no longer passive in your life. You're participating in it. You're shaping it with intention. And that's when people start to pay attention. It's easy to be around someone who never questions anything. But people respect what they can't walk all over. A boundary is not a wall. It's a filter. It says, you're welcome in my life, but only if you come with respect, consistency, and consideration. And anyone who can't meet that isn't being rejected. They're simply being redirected out of a space they were never meant to occupy. What's powerful is that when you set a boundary, you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to argue. You just need to be clear and consistent. People test boundaries not because they don't understand them, but because they want to see if you'll enforce them. And that's where your strength is revealed, not in what you allow once, but in what you never allow again. You'll notice something else too. When you stop pleasing, some people will leave. That's not a loss. That's a reveal. They weren't connected to your soul. They were connected to your compliance. When the benefit of your flexibility ends, so does their presence. Let it. Because the people who remain, the ones who thrive in your boundaries, those are the ones who genuinely value you. Pleasing feels like love, but it's fear in disguise. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of conflict. But when you live to avoid fear, you sacrifice authenticity. And there is no respect in relationships where authenticity is absent. Real love respects your no as much as your yes. Real connection honors your limit. The most powerful version of you doesn't exist to keep everyone else comfortable. She exists to stand in truth, to communicate clearly, and to live in alignment with her values. That version of you doesn't seek respect through sacrifice. She earns it through self-respect. And it all begins when you stop trying to be liked by everyone and start being loyal to yourself. There is a quiet kind of confidence that radiates from a woman who knows she can leave at any moment, and not because she's arrogant or emotionally unavailable or playing games, but because she has done the inner work. She has built a life, an identity, a sense of self that doesn't depend on being chosen to feel valuable. She doesn't stay out of fear, and she doesn't tolerate disrespect just to avoid loneliness. Her presence in any relationship is not a result of desperation. It's a choice, and that is what makes her powerful. This kind of woman doesn't threaten to walk away to manipulate someone into treating her better. She doesn't need to. Her standard is clear, and she lives by it. She communicates it not through ultimatums, but through consistency. She knows that her ability to leave gives her the freedom to stay with intention. Because when you're not bound by fear, when you're not clinging to something out of lack, you can be fully present, fully loving, and fully grounded. You're not trying to control the other person's behavior. You're simply clear on what aligns with your peace and what doesn't. And here's the thing, people feel that energy. When someone knows you don't need them to validate you, they either rise to meet your level or they remove themselves, and either outcome is a gift. Because this isn't about having power over someone, it's about having power with yourself. It's about knowing that your sense of worth is not built on whether someone stays. It's built on the life you've created, that you know you can return to. with or without them. You become dangerous to the wrong people the moment you realize you don't have to settle. Not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. You stop trying to convince someone of your value. You stop bending, shrinking, or contorting to be enough for someone who is still uncertain about you. Instead, you show up in your fullness, and if they don't see the value in that, you walk. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in complete emotional clarity. Because a woman who can walk away isn't walking toward emptiness, she's walking toward freedom. She's walking toward alignment, toward a deeper connection with herself and a higher standard of living. And that kind of confidence cannot be faked. It's born from experience, from lessons, from heartbreaks that taught her the cost of staying too long in the wrong place. When you no longer fear being alone, you stop settling for half love. You stop holding on to people just to avoid the discomfort of starting over. And in that space, you gain something far more valuable than any relationship. You gain self-ownership. The kind that says, I choose to be here, but I will never stay if it costs me my peace. That's not ego. That's self-respect. And it's the most unshakable form of power there is. Many people confuse attention with value. They think that just because someone is giving them their time, sending messages, liking photos, or showing up sporadically, it must mean they care. But attention without consistency, without effort, without depth, is not love. It's a distraction. And when you mistake attention for genuine investment, you end up settling for crumbs and calling it a meal. The truth is, you teach people how to treat you by what you respond to. If you keep accepting the bare minimum, occasional texts, hot and cold behavior, someone showing up only when it's convenient, you're silently saying, this is enough for me. Even if your words say otherwise, your actions become the curriculum. The curriculum. People don't learn from what you say, they learn from what you allow. There's a moment every woman faces where she realizes that presence is not the same as partnership. Just because someone is around doesn't mean they're with you. There's a difference between someone who checks in and someone who shows up, and that distinction matters. Because when you hold space for someone who's only half in, you're preventing the possibility of someone who would be all in from ever finding their way to you. Real. When you raise your standards, yes, you risk losing people, but you only lose the ones who were never prepared to meet you at your level in the first place. And that's not rejection, that's refinement. It's life filtering out those who can't handle the full weight of your worth. Because the person who is truly for you won't make you question your value. They won't treat you like an option. They won't require convincing, chasing, or constant reassurance. They'll bring peace, not confusion. Presence, not patterns. But in order to make room for that kind of energy, you have to stop settling for temporary fixes. You have to let go of the idea that someone's potential is a reason to stay. Potential is irrelevant if it never turns into action. You're not here to raise someone emotionally. You're not here to beg someone to choose you. You're here to live in your truth, to own your needs, and to refuse anything that feels like a halfway connection. That's where your power comes in, not in controlling someone else's behavior, but in controlling your response to it. When you stop accepting inconsistent effort, you send a message. I am worth more than convenience. I am worth more than being someone's maybe. That's not cold and it's not unkind. It's clarity. And clarity is a gift, not just for you, but for the world around you. Because when you know your worth and you refuse to settle for less than it, you shift the standard. Not just for yourself, but for every woman watching you. You become proof that it's okay to walk away from attention that doesn't come with intention. And that's a lesson some never learn. But you just did. One of the most empowering realizations a woman can have is that being alone is not a punishment. It's a privilege when it means preserving your peace, your identity, and your standards. Far too often, people stay in unfulfilling, confusing, or even toxic relationships simply because they fear the discomfort of solitude. But the fear of being alone has kept more people stuck than almost anything else. And the irony is, many of those people are already lonely. They just happen to be in relationships. Being with someone and still feeling unseen, misunderstood, or emotionally abandoned is a deeper kind of loneliness than actually being on your own. That's why choosing solitude, when the alternative is chaos, emotional inconsistency, or disrespect, is not a weakness. It's strength. It's not a weakness. It's strength. It's not about giving up on love. It's about refusing to settle for a version of love that cost you your self-worth. When you learn how to be alone, Truly, fully, unapologetically, you stop making decisions from desperation. You stop chasing closure, begging for clarity, or tolerating almost relationships to fill a void. You begin to realize that peace, freedom, and clarity are more valuable than constant texting, half-hearted apologies, or someone who keeps you around only when it suits them. Around only when it suits them. You find yourself waking up lighter, freer, because your emotional world is no longer dictated by someone else's inconsistency. This is the season where you discover who you are without the noise. You start building your own routines, nurturing your passions, investing in your healing. You grow in ways you couldn't while you were busy managing someone else's emotional roller coaster. And most importantly, you start trusting yourself again, your gut, your boundaries, your desires. You realize that being alone doesn't mean you're incomplete. It means you're choosing wholeness over dysfunction. And when you become comfortable in your own company, you become far more selective about who gets access to you. You no longer entertain people who disrupt your peace. You no longer fall for potential or promises. You wait for presence and consistency. You don't ignore red flags in the name of connection because you're no longer afraid of what it means to walk away. You've already done the hardest part. You faced the silence and you found your strength in it. There's a reason the woman who's willing to be alone holds so much power, because she cannot be manipulated by fear. She's not looking to be saved, completed, or rescued. She's already saved herself. And when love does come, real love, the kind that honors her, it won't be out of need, but out of choice, a conscious, mutual, grounded choice. So never fear solitude, fear settling, because peace is not something you get from someone else. It's something you protect within yourself. And when you do, you raise the standard for every connection that follows. When a woman walks away from what doesn't serve her, she's not just making a decision, she's setting a new standard. She's drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is the level of love, respect, and peace I require from now on. And from that moment forward, anything that falls short of that line simply doesn't get access to her anymore. This is how standards are enforced, not through talk, but through action. You can tell people what you expect all day long, but it's not until you're willing to walk when those expectations aren't met that people start taking you seriously. That's because true standards aren't negotiable. They're not situational. They're not based on how much you like someone or how long you've known them. They're rooted in your self-worth. And your willingness to enforce them shows exactly how much you respect yourself. When you walk away from someone who can't meet your standard, you're not being cold or cruel. You're being clear. You're saying, I've done the inner work. I know what I bring to the table. And if that's not honored, I'd rather sit alone than beg for a seat at someone else's. That kind of clarity is rare, and it's powerful because it forces the people around you to either rise to meet you or to step aside. A woman with standards is not high maintenance. She's self-aware. She doesn't demand perfection. She simply refuses to live in emotional confusion. She's not asking for more than she gives. She just knows that effort, consistency, and emotional safety aren't luxuries. They're bare minimums for any real connection. And once she decides she won't settle, the entire energy of her relationships changes. People will test your boundaries. They'll test your standards. Not always maliciously, but often because they're used to getting away with less. The difference now is that you don't bend. You don't plead. You don't lower the bar to keep someone comfortable. You let them go gracefully, peacefully, without drama, because you know that protecting your standard protects your future. And yes, it can feel lonely at times. Holding the line requires strength. But it also creates space for something far greater than anything you lost. It creates space for alignment, for people who don't just respect your standard, but match it. People who show up, not because you chase them or convince them, but because they see your worth and meet you there, naturally. So the next time you wonder if you did the right thing by walking away, remember this: every time you enforce your standard, you strengthen your self-worth. And the woman who stands by her worth, even when it costs her something, is the woman who always wins in the end. Because she's not waiting for someone to value her. She's already decided she's valuable. When a woman walks away, it's not always because she wants to. It's because she has to. It's because she spent days, weeks, maybe even years trying to make something work that kept falling short of what her heart truly needed. Her silence wasn't indifference. Her distance wasn't coldness. They were signals, quiet, consistent signs that she was running out of emotional room to keep giving where she was no longer receiving. And when she finally lets go, it's not sudden. It's the result of 1,000 moments where she was left unheard, unseen, and unmet. You see, people often think someone just gave up when they walk away. But giving up is passive. Walking away is a decision. It's an act of self-respect. It's choosing to stop explaining your worth and start protecting your... And yes, it might surprise the other person because they weren't paying attention. They thought she would always stay, that she'd always forgive, that she'd always wait, but no one stays forever in a space that slowly breaks them down. Eventually, even the most patient heart has its limit. Walking away is often the loudest expression of love for yourself. It's the moment you finally stop prioritizing someone else's comfort over your own well-being. It's when you realize that giving someone more chances isn't kindness, when it's draining you. That excusing bad behavior in the name of a potential only delays your healing, and that if someone was really meant for you, you wouldn't have to abandon yourself to keep them. The powerful thing about the woman who walks away is that she doesn't need to announce it with anger or dramatic exits. She doesn't burn bridges or seek revenge. Her strength is in her stillness. She simply disengages. She lets go of the exhausting cycle of hoping things will change. And when she walks with grace, not because it didn't hurt, but because she finally chose herself over the illusion of love. And what most people don't realize until it's too late is that her leaving wasn't a loss for her. It was a lesson for them. A lesson that love isn't guaranteed just because someone cares. That loyalty isn't unconditional when it's one-sided. That eventually a woman who's emotionally starving will stop asking for the bare minimum and go find the nourishment elsewhere, within herself first, and then with someone who sees her clearly. If you're the woman who walked away, remember this. Your absence will echo in places your presence was once taken for granted. Not out of vengeance, but out of reality. Because the kind of love you give, steady, loyal, deep, doesn't come around often. And when you stop showing up for someone who never truly showed up for you, you didn't lose anything. You reclaimed everything. The moment a woman chooses to walk away, she reclaims her story, and with it, her future. Walking away is not a failure or an ending. It's a profound beginning. It's the act of stepping out of a narrative that no longer serves her and writing a new one that honors her truth, her value, and her potential. It is an act of courage that demands self-awareness, self-love, and a deep understanding of what she deserves. When she walks away, she is taking back the power that was lost when she stayed in situations that diminished her spirit or compromised her values. She is saying, without words, that she will no longer tolerate anything less than respect, consistency, and genuine connection. That boundary setting is not optional. It is essential. This decision shifts the entire trajectory of her life because it transforms her from a passive participant into an active creator of her own reality. There is an undeniable liberation in choosing to walk away. It frees her from the weight of disappointment and the emotional turmoil of trying to force something that isn't meant to be. She is no longer trapped by hope that fades or promises that break. Instead, she opens herself to possibilities that align with her highest good. This kind of liberation creates space for healing, growth, and authentic relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and care. In walking away, she also teaches a powerful lesson, not just to others, but to herself. She learns that her happiness is not dependent on anyone else's approval or presence. She realizes that her worth is intrinsic, not contingent on someone else's recognition. This awareness fuels her confidence and gives her the strength to trust herself more deeply. It becomes clear that staying out of fear, obligation, or loneliness is a disservice to her soul. Furthermore, walking away is an act of self-preservation that safeguards her mental, emotional, and spiritual health. It prevents her from being drained by toxic dynamics or false hope. Instead of investing energy into trying to change others, she invests in nurturing herself, rediscovering passions, and reconnecting with her purpose. This internal investment is the foundation upon which a stronger, more resilient version of herself is built. The woman who walks away also creates a ripple effect. Her choice influences the people around her, encouraging them to reflect on their own boundaries and standards. She becomes a beacon of empowerment for others who may feel stuck or undervalued. Her example shows that walking away isn't abandonment. It's an invitation to rise, to choose better, and to embrace the power of intentional living. In essence, walking away is a declaration of self-respect and a commitment to living authentically. It's not a sign of weakness, but a testament to her strength. It signals that she values herself enough to refuse less than she deserves. And through this act, she holds the greatest power of all, the power to shape her own destiny and live a life that reflects her true worth. There is a profound freedom that comes with realizing that your worth is not dependent on someone else's validation. This is the ultimate source of power for any woman, understanding that her value is inherent, untouchable, and not negotiable. When a woman walks away from a relationship or situation that diminishes her, she is stepping into that freedom, reclaiming her identity, and refusing to let external circumstances dictate how she feels about herself. This kind of freedom is not about rejection or bitterness. It's about liberation. It's about releasing the need for approval and control from others and instead anchoring your self-esteem in your own truth. When you're no longer trying to prove your worth, you stop seeking constant reassurance, you stop people-pleasing, and you stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. Instead, you stand tall, confident in who you are, regardless of whether others recognize it or not. The power in this freedom lies in the fact that it cannot be taken away by anyone else. No matter what someone says, does, or how they treat you, your intrinsic worth remains the same. And when you truly believe that, you become immune to manipulation, emotional blackmail, and toxic dynamics. You no longer settle for crumbs or fleeting attention because you know your value is whole and complete on its own. Walking away with this mindset transforms your entire relationship to yourself and others. You're not running from love, you're running towards self-respect. You're not abandoning connection. You're choosing connection that is healthy, reciprocal, and fulfilling. This perspective shifts your energy from desperation to dignity, from fear to faith in your own path. Moreover, when you embody this freedom, you attract relationships and opportunities that honor your worth. People who sense your self-respect are naturally drawn to you because confidence and authenticity have magnetic power. You no longer waste time on those who don't see your value or who try to diminish it. Instead, you make space for those who uplift, support, and celebrate the real you. This freedom also brings peace. There is no longer a constant inner battle between your desires and your reality. No more second-guessing or justifying your feelings. Instead, there's clarity and calm. You accept yourself fully, including your strengths, your flaws, and your journey. You understand that your worth does not fluctuate based on external approval. It is steady, solid, and unshakable. Ultimately, the woman who walks away holding her worth knows that her power isn't about controlling others, but about mastering herself. It's about choosing what nourishes her soul and releasing what doesn't. It's about being free to say yes and free to say no without guilt or doubt. And it's about living a life that reflects the profound truth that her value is hers alone to define, unchanged by anyone else's opinion or behavior. To wrap this all up, the woman who walks away holds all the power because she has chosen herself first. Her peace, her standards, her worth. She's not defined by anyone else's approval or presence. Instead, she commands respect through clarity, boundaries, and unwavering self-love. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's an act of profound strength, courage, and self-awareness. It signals a refusal to settle for less than she deserves and a commitment to live authentically and intentionally. This power comes from understanding that true value isn't given. It's owned. It's owned. It's rooted in freedom from fear, from neediness, and from the desperation to be seen or accepted. When a woman embraces this, she shifts her entire world. She attracts relationships that honor her, connections that uplift her, and opportunities that align with her highest self. So whether it's walking away from a relationship, a toxic pattern, or anything that diminishes her light, she's not losing anything. She's reclaiming everything. And in doing so, she becomes unstoppable. Because the most powerful woman isn't the one who clings. It's the one who walks away, knowing exactly what she deserves and having the courage to claim it. That is the woman who truly holds all the power.